Hello, my name is Vison, and I finally saw the comment with people asking that they wanted a combo guide, so I finally got around to recording one. So we're going to start off with Crystron Inclusion one card combo. This will be both the Crystron basic stuff as well as the Bladeless line. So we're going to start by using Inclusion to add Sulfidor effect, target Inclusion to destroy it and summon itself, then on summon, we send a copy of Smiger and another copy of Inclusion. Inclusion engrave, target Smiger, summon it out. And then 2 machine bodies equals combo, so we summon out Booster here. Because we already drill checked with Inclusion, at this point, we know whether or not it's safe to add Funk Dock. The Funk Dock will add a Stage Landing. Stage Landing summons Lambda Cannon. And then use the Lambda Cannon, blow it up, look at your opponent's hand. If there's something to summon, you summon it out. In this position now, New Chain Funk Dock trigger. This would be different depending on what you saw in your opponent's hand, as well as what you did or did not summon out. But by default, you summon something useful. So now we summon out Driller. You might have seen a Lambda Blade. Ignore it. We're just going to pretend I don't have Lambda Blade in deck right now. And now we use Driller effect to destroy the target. Do not protect it with Stage Landing, because we are now going to use Vulcan Booster to summon out Lambda Cannon. And then Cannon on summon, target Driller, add this back to hand. Now we make our Brute Blues. Brute Blues adds another Stage Landing. Stage Landing, summon out Shepherd's Crook. You want to specifically put the Shepherd's Crook here, because Shepherd's Crook has a left arrow, and you want both Brute Blues and Shepherd's Crook to be pointing to the same zone. If you want to, you can put them in the same column, or you can choose to put them separately like this. But again, you want both of them pointing to the same zone because your RB effects have to have an RB monster pointing to them, and if one of them, if you only have one Link monster and it gets outed, you suddenly have no interactions. So having both of them pointing to the same zone is pretty important for this deck's continued function. After this, Shepherd's Crook, we set the next phase in the Bladeless line, summon this out, and this is your standard one-card combo where you have Driller here, Funk Dock will cycle into Blade, as well as next phase being 3 basic interruptions, as well as the Lambda Cannon that you use, which is your 4th interruption. Yes, that's kinda lean, but this is why I do play the deck quite non-engine heavy, because those extra non-engine cards will make up the difference for the one-card combo. The other thing is, because of hand knowledge, and because you have both a monster negate and a spell trap negate, the hand knowledge alone usually is enough to ensure that you don't waste interactions. But that is one of the tricky things about this deck. Also, by the way, because we have Smiger, Sulfidor, and a copy of Inclusion engrave at the end of this combo, we do have follow-up, both from Inclusion, target Sulfidor, summon it out, repeat the process, or you can either now or next turn use the Smiger engrave to add your last copy of Inclusion to hand. Yeah, and this is also follow-up as well. So next thing I want to show is just if you've got it, you're uninterrupted and you made it to the end of the combo, but you just have a random monster in hand, so that's what the Ghost Ogre is for. So let's just go quickly run through the combo. So in this version of the combo, I'm going to show you, post side, you have added all the cards you care about. And so now we do actually have Blade and Last Stand in the deck, but for now, we won't be seeing Last Stand. Okay. So as usual, Cannon, summon something out. In this situation, because we have Lambda Blade, we can now summon out Lambda Blade instead of any of our other interruptions. And we can now use Lambda Blade to part select. So Driller or Cutter, again, depends on your opponent's hand. Default choice is Driller. And as before, we can use Cannon to add the Driller to hand. Crook. Stage Landing. Sorry, Brute, Crook, next phase, and then we can inherit some of this part, target, this case, we do want to protect it with Stage Landing so it still exists on the board. So this is the standard Blade In line. This is the standard Blade In 1-card combo line. However, if you were mostly uninterrupted and just have a random monster in your hand at the end of it, normal summon random monster, link to Camellia. You can end here because you can destroy Camellia using next phase, right? And that's how you get a 5th okay, because normally your 4 interactions on the pure RB end board are going to be Driller, Blade, Cutter, and next phase, on top of your 5th interaction technically being the Lambda Cannon hand ripping. If you need one more interaction without running any extra bricks, you can just summon Camellia. However, if you know your opponent is running a Sky Striker package, giving them a Camellia on their turn just gives them extension. So if you don't want to do that, you just replace Camellia with Amatsu instead. And this is how you get 5 interruptions plus 6 from the Lambda Cannon. With the caveat, of course, that Amatsu does, you know, A, take up this slot, and B, does run into some issues with Super Poly, especially if you have 3 Dark Machines on the back row. For example, if you see your opponent has a Super Poly in their hand, you don't leave Blade up, you put Driller there instead. But either way, that is the post-side, brickless, no Regulus combo. One more thing I want to show is a quick preview of Beyond the Brave, where we're going to get Helping a Robo for underwater combat, or whatever they end up translating this to. Notably, the search effect locks you out of special summoning anything other than machine monsters, and that includes the Lambda Cannon summon effect. So, I want to talk about just one sample line using Helping Robo. For argument's sake, I'm also going to pretend that we are doing a bladeless line here. Okay, so we banish the Helping Robo, and we're going to banish a copy of Shepherd's Crook. There's a summon a Rusted Mammoth. Going to use the trigger, and we are going to search Gizmek Arakami, the Hailbringer Hog. It has... The first effect is, if you control a machine with equal attack and defense, you can special summon this from your hand. That is the basic reason why. It also means that it pairs with all of the RB inherent summons, so it's probably one of the less bricky options you can search off of this. Yes, you could search Driller Cutter, but you would have to normal summon it, and in my view, you should be saving the normal summon for hand traps so you can make Camellia to extend in very janky ways. This is my preferred target. The only other target I could find was like BES Metal Slave. It's like, no. So either way, we use its effect summon out. Do the normal combo for a bit. Funk Dock, Stage Landing for Cannon, Cannon, blow up, and look at their hand. However, again, we cannot summon from our opponent's hand most of the time. In most matchups, we can't. But we know what's in our opponent's hand. At this point, we're doing part select. Again, flexible depending on what they have. But just as a sample, we're going to summon Cutter here. Now, we're going to use Arakami's second effect. Okay, where, essentially, what you need to care about is it reads Foolish Burial. However, it has to send something with a lower level than the thing you target on field. So if you want to have all the parts on the field, you have to send Cutter. You either have to summon Cutter or you summon Rocket. You know, I wouldn't summon Pile Bunker in this situation. It's better to keep that in deck. So in this case, we can now use the effect Foolish Burial. Then we can add it back with the cannon. And then we just do the normal line. The rest of the normal line. Crook. Set next phase. Again, we're pretending this is bladeless line. And then just summon out the Driller. And we have all of our interruptions on the field, if you feel like that's a better choice than having one of them in the deck under Funk Dock. If not, if for example you just wanted to leave Driller in grave, or if you summoned out Rocket, sent Driller, and wanted to keep Cutter in deck, you can also do that. Why would you do that? Because Shepherd's Crook requires 3 RB parts to be in grave, and because Funk Dock, in a format with a lot of copies of Fallen and the Virtuous, a lot of people will be shooting Funk Dock on your turn. making sure that you have 3 parts in rotation is kind of important to ensuring that your end board stays resilient. And for that reason, that's why Arcami is just the best search target from Stage Mammoth through Helping Robo. But that's just my opinion. Again, you can tweak this end board a little bit if you so need to, but that's just what I've come up with so far. Dealing with Fua, especially with Funk Dock Opener, is nothing special. Just Funk Dock, add Stage Landing. Stage Landing effect, they chain Fua here. If you have Blade and Last Stand in your deck, you just summon Shepherd's Crook. That's 1 draw. You set Last Stand. Pass. That's it. That's the entire line. Right. Like, wait, what is this? This is 3 interruptions, right? Because again, you go Last Stand. Summon Blade. Blade, summon, send to grave. You haven't looked, unfortunately, you haven't gotten a look at your opponent's hand, but you, in this case, usually have to summon send Driller. Opponent says, they summon something, immediately blow this up. You know, steal it, whatever. Funk Dock, summon the last part. And then if they were to use a spell, you would be able to send this to grave, and then use Shepherd's Crook to summon back the Driller, and that would be 3 interruptions. It's not great, but it is a droll. It is a under droll. You can still get 3 interruptions kind of line. One last thing I want to talk about is if you were to make your first search Stage Landing, how would that line go? And also an explanation of why I hate this line. So I'm just going to use Tetherwolf as a sample for an easy way to create 2 machine bodies. We're going to make Booster. We're going to search Stage Landing. Okay, this stupid line. So in this situation, if you actually want to get to a halfway decent Ren board, you have to summon Lambda Blade first. Use Lambda Blade, sight unseen, you have to send Driller. Which is, again, why I do not like this line. Okay. In this position, Brute Blues, Funk Dock, Stage Landing, Cannon. Cannon, we can now add back Driller to our hand. Now we blow this up. Take a look at our opponent's hand. Summon out. Notably, we are way past 5 summons at this point, so if your opponent did have Nib, you would be dead here. In this case, we will now summon Rocket. Again, I'm not really happy about this, but we summon Rocket. We can use Rocket to blow up the target. Then we link 2 back into Booster. In this case, we can now choose, we can sort of part select, because in this case we are in this position, where we have materials to make a link 3 and then 1 part. So in this case we are now forced to end with Shepherd's Crook setting a trap. This is not a good line. This is nearly as bad as self-drawing. Not quite as bad as self-drawing, but pretty close to it. One of the big problems is we don't have the double arrow resilience that you would normally get from the line that I use. Another big problem is normally Lambda Cannon would be your insulation against Nibiru. But because we did it so far into the combo, they can just Lambda Cannon effect, they chain Nib, and then you just kind of die on the spot. One more problem, again, is... Well, I mean, one of the okay things is because we went through so much stuff, we do already have 3 parts in grave, so we can just use Shepherd's Crook at earliest opportunity to summon back the Lambda Blade. That's not bad. But again, the main problem that I don't like about this end board is it's just not resilient in the slightest. It has so many resilience issues, and we are basically probably ending on 3 interruptions, because one of them will have to be used for next phase, unless we get lucky and we can just use the Driller on something before having to use next phase. But again, I do not like this line. Also, it plays turbo hard into Fua as well. And so that's it for some combo lines that I've come up with so far. This is just a sample deck list I've been messing around with, but honestly, you don't have to pay super close attention to it. Either way, that's been it from me. If there's anything else specific, or even if like you just don't like the line and think I should have done something differently, don't forget to feel free to leave me a comment, and hopefully I won't take 3 weeks to react to it. That's been it for me. Thanks for watching.